The text that changed everything. Tom had always trusted Sarah. He trusted her laugh, the way it bubbled up from her chest in a perfect blend of joy and warmth. He trusted the smell of her perfume, lingering in the hallway even after she left for work. He trusted the soft, worn pages of the book she kept by the bedside, the one she never let out of her sight, even if it sat untouched for weeks. It was a trust he had built over 10 years of marriage. A solid foundation he thought could withstand anything. But one night, one tiny moment, would crumble everything he thought he knew. It was late, the house dark and quiet, save for the low hum of the refrigerator and the soft tapping of the rain against the window. Tom had been flipping through his emails, his attention drifting in and out when Sarah's phone buzzed beside him on the kitchen counter. He glanced at it absently, thinking it was probably another work message. She'd been buried in emails for weeks, the office taking up more and more of her time. But then, something about the phone caught his eye. It was a text, the preview visible on the screen. "I'll be waiting for you at 9. Don't be late." It was from an unsaved number. Tom's breath hitched. He wasn't proud of the way his fingers hovered over the phone, the sudden urge to open it, to see who had sent it. But he didn't. He told himself it wasn't his business. Sarah was entitled to her privacy, just as he was. They had always respected each other's space, their relationship built on openness. But the text, it gnawed at him. The words rattled in his brain. "I'll be waiting for you at 9. Who was she meeting at 9? Why hadn't she mentioned it? Sarah had always been so forthcoming, her life laid out like an open book. And yet this text had pierced through the veneer of their perfect relationship. A crack had appeared, sharp and jagged, and Tom couldn't ignore it. He tried. He really did. He went to bed, pretending everything was fine. But sleep wouldn't come. He tossed and turned, the question echoing in his mind, who was she meeting? The next morning, Sarah left early, as she always did. Tom didn't mention the text. It wasn't like him to accuse her of anything without proof. But every time he saw her phone light up, his stomach turned. Every time she laughed at something on her screen, his heart raced, wondering what secret she was keeping from him. It started as a slow burn. He'd glance at her phone when she wasn't looking for clues. The texts were all innocuous, work schedules, reminders about dinner, a few funny memes. But then, just as he was starting to think it was nothing, another text appeared. This time, the message was from the same unknown number. "The plan is still in place. Let's meet at the same spot." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Tom didn't know what to do with this new information. His thoughts spiraled, each scenario more painful than the last. Was she having an affair? Or was it something else? He couldn't make sense of it. He couldn't breathe. All he knew was that the man he thought he was, the husband who trusted and loved his wife with everything he had, was suddenly unsure of his own reality. It had been 2 days since the text. Tom's obsession with uncovering the truth was beginning to take hold of him, slowly, like a vine creeping up a wall. His thoughts turned darker. He couldn't just let it go. He needed answers. One night, when Sarah's phone buzzed again, Tom snapped. Without thinking, his hand shot out, grabbing the phone from the counter. He opened it before he could stop himself. The text from the unknown number was there again. "I'm ready when you are." His heart pounded. His breath came in sharp, shallow bursts. Tom quickly searched the name attached to the number. Alex. Alex. The name meant nothing to him. It didn't ring a bell, didn't bring back any memories. And yet, it carried with it the weight of 1,000 questions. He scrolled back through the messages, reading every word. Most were cryptic, alluding to plans and meetings he didn't understand. But one text from a week ago caught his eye. "I can't keep this a secret much longer. Sarah's starting to suspect something." Tom's blood ran cold. Sarah had known something was happening. She'd suspected it. His mind reeled. What was he missing? Why had she kept this from him? Why didn't she trust him enough to tell him what was really going on? The weight of the truth, whatever it was, crushed him. That night, he waited. He knew something was coming. He knew that Sarah would leave at some point, that she would go meet Alex, and he needed to be sure. The fear, the anxiety, it gnawed at him. Was this the end of everything? Had his whole life with her been a lie? At exactly 8:45 p.m., Sarah grabbed her coat, heading for the door. "Where are you going?" Tom asked, his voice shaking. Sarah paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. Just a quick meeting with a colleague. You know about this. We talked about it. Tom's world tilted. He felt dizzy, disoriented. This was it. He had his answer. He'd been right. It was all true. But something stopped him. Her eyes, soft and uncertain, fixed on his. The look in her face, that vulnerability, the subtle sadness behind her words. I don't know what you're talking about, Tom, she whispered. But you've been acting strange lately. Why are you looking at my phone? What's going on? Tom blinked, reality crashing over him like a tidal wave. The truth wasn't what he thought. It never was. His suspicions, his obsession, had blinded him. He hadn't seen the truth because he'd been too focused on his fear. He began, but words failed him. There was nothing left to say. Sarah reached out to touch his hand. Tom, I've been meeting with Alex. I've been planning a surprise party for you. You've been so distant lately, so stressed with everything. I wanted to do something special for your birthday. The relief that flooded him was overwhelming, almost suffocating. His mind scrambled to process it all. The secret texts, the cryptic messages, it all made sense now. Tom felt his knees weaken. The panic, the jealousy, the fear. It had all been for nothing. He had spiraled into a place of doubt and suspicion, where nothing could have been worse than the truth he'd built up in his mind. Surprise party? He whispered. Sarah nodded. Yes, Tom. A surprise. The room fell silent, the weight of the truth hanging between them. And for the first time in days, Tom realized something. He had let his fears take control of him, and in doing so, he almost destroyed everything he held dear. It was the text that changed everything. But maybe, just maybe, it was also the text that brought him back to the one thing he truly needed: trust.